Dennis O'Rourke.
Mr Speaker, 9 years is far too long for a return to a fully elected regional council in Canterbury. 6 years is actually easily long enough for the commissioners to have done the job that they set out to do. And they have done a good job, and others have said that, I agree. They've overseen the establishment of the Canterbury water management strategy, but that job is done, and they proudly say so themselves. The strategy properly balances economic development with sustainable freshwater objectives, and there is no way of going back now. Clause 23 actually of the bill says this, and I quote, "In considering any proposed freshwater plan or regional policy statement during the transition period, Environment Canterbury must have particular regard to the vision and principles of the Canterbury Water Management Strategy," unquote. So that actually entrenches the strategy right now in this bill. So why would it be necessary to continue the appointed commissioners to do just that, when in fact that would have to be done in the bill by the elected members if they were only elected? Mr Speaker, local government is fundamentally about local democracy, a representative democracy. So where commissioners are appointed, their term must be the shortest possible term. Otherwise, the representation completely disappears from local government. And that's what's happened in Environment Canterbury over the last 6 years. And by having this hybrid model, you actually get the worst of both worlds. You neither get a genuinely representative body, nor do you get one which is free from either the actuality or the perception of central government influence, and those things are important. In addition to that, you will inevitably get a them and us attitude arising in the council itself, and that won't be positive. I want to move on to the question of Ngāi Tahu representatives, because New Zealand First opposes that provision in the bill as well. Ngāi Tahu are to appoint 2 of the government's first 3 appointments out of a maximum of 6. New Zealand First's policy is generally that appointed people must not be made to elected bodies, whether they are elected councils or other bodies. So New Zealand First says that provision is just as bad as the one which requires the appointment of the other commissioners as well. Both provisions are undemocratic and should not be in the bill. The government, Mr Speaker, claims that what it wants is a stable Environment Canterbury with specialist skills. And if you look at Clause 11, those skills are spelled out and they are listed. And one of them is, quote, "the management of fresh water." Well, that's not exclusive as a skill to appointed people. And in fact, in Canterbury, there are a lot of people who could be and will be elected to ECAN who have those skills in great measure. Another one is, and I quote, "local authority governance and management." But there are actually more people available in Canterbury with those skills than there would be available for appointment, and they would be just as good. In addition to that, there is, quote, "knowledge of the Canterbury region and its people." But in fact, elected people are much more likely to have those skills than any which could be appointed. So when you look at that objective for skills, they are better fulfilled by elected people than they would be by appointed people. So the government's justification utterly vanishes for that reason. In addition to that, the Minister has said that he wants to see continuity. Well, what is the magic about continuity? The real issue isn't continuity. The real issue is an appropriate mix of skills of the people to serve on Environment Canterbury, and as I've just said, that can be done easily and fully with elected people. In fact, the bill doesn't even mention continuity at all, so I don't even know why the Minister raised the issue. It is completely irrelevant, as in fact is the rest of his argument to try to justify the appointment of people to Environment Canterbury. And the government's only paying lip service to local democracy in the bill by having some of the members elected and the rest appointed. It's really a hybrid council that will result. It wouldn't be in any way democratic, and democracy would be compromised by the fact that there are appointed members, even if they are not in the majority. Mr. Speaker, a full return to democracy is essential after these 6 years finish this year. That's essential, because Environment Canterbury has already lost its credibility with the people of Canterbury as a representative body. They just don't see it as their council anymore. That's gone, and it's not going to be easy to get back. This bill will make it worse and not better. So it shouldn't go on for another 3 years to make it a staggering 9 years in total. And it's one thing, Mr. Speaker, to dismiss elected councillors way back in 2010, but it's another thing altogether to allow it to go on for 9 years. As I've said, it should go on for the shortest possible time. And the Creech report actually said this, quote, "The explicit intent is for the commissioners to withdraw and to be replaced by elected representatives as soon as their task is achieved and the present systematic issues are resolved," unquote. As soon as their task is achieved. That task, the Canterbury Water Management Strategy, shows that it has been achieved. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, it's time for us to say to those commissioners, your job is done, and by the way, well done, but thanks and goodbye. It's time for that. And lastly, the bill is seriously flawed in one other way. The legislation will be repealed under Clause 6 after the 2019 local government elections. And by then, Environment Canterbury will, under that clause, have to have decided what wards it would have, how many councillors per ward it would have, and so on, for that election to take place. But Clause 29(2) says, quote, "Environment Canterbury must review," unquote. And that means all of the members of Environment Canterbury, including the appointed members. Now, Mr. Speaker, the reason for the appointment of the commissioners was exclusively to look at water issues, not to decide what the future Environment Canterbury should be. Not their job at all, and yet this bill makes it their responsibility just as much as those who would be elected, and that is totally inappropriate. It is not going to serve the interests of the people of Christchurch to have, and Canterbury, to have appointed people deciding what their regional council will look like after 2019. It is a serious flaw in the bill. I've mentioned it in previous speeches. The government has done nothing about it. The government is simply cloth-eared about all the serious flaws in the bill and just wants this legislation passed, irrespective of what the people of Canterbury say, because, as Ruth Dyson said, they have virtually all submitted that they don't want this bill. People of Canterbury want their full democracy back, including those, Mr. Speaker, who actually supported the appointment of the commissioners in the first place, because they know their job has been done. They know it's time for them to go. They think they did a good job, but they want their democracy back. And that's what should be happening now, not this idiotic bill which will achieve absolutely nothing and which will compromise democracy in Canterbury for another 3 years. It's a bad bill and it should not be passed.